Last night, home run derby, major snooze. Ohtani, though, still the one thing that hovers over this entire Midsummer Classic.
Yeah, so you have no Aaron Judge hurt. Mike Trout hurt. Bryce Harper hasn't been good enough. He came off injury. No Tatis. He's not there. So really, it's kind of like it's a one-star event, right? Is there a? I guess
Ellie De La Cruz should have been there.
Right, and he's not allowed to be there yet because
they called him up late.
They called him up too late. So I think even in a normal year, Shohei Ohtani would be the big story. But now he's like everything. He's the entire game.
Well, and there's a reason why he's everything. Because right now, as we are less than a month away from the MLB trade deadline, this is now the story. Until football comes back and we can turn our attention to college football and the NFL, this is the number one story. Let's hear from Shohei Ohtani, who was asked yesterday by the media about his impending free agency. Now, just to tell you, this is through a translator. This is not Ohtani's actual words. When he was asked how important is winning.
Yeah, those feelings get stronger year by year. It sucks to lose. He wants to win, so yeah, it gets stronger every year.
Sucks to lose. It gets stronger year by year. Translation, he's gone. He's gone because
out of here.
Listen, for as well as the Angels started off the season, now they've really trailed off. They're 7 games back. They're 5 games out of the wild card, and they're 4th in the AL West, only behind the god-awful, historically bad Oakland A's.
If I'm MLB, I pull a reverse Chris Paul. So the NBA said Chris Paul couldn't go to the Lakers because they'd be too good. MLB, I really want them to trade Shohei Ohtani because he is, as we just said, the face of the sport. You need him in the World Series and the playoffs, and this is completely unfair. I don't think it's going to happen with the Angels, at least no time soon. I don't know exactly why. So I feel like the whole sport needs to get him to a contender, and we need to see him in the World Series because it's like we're watching history unfold every time he takes him out. He's setting a new record. He's the most unique athlete. He is baseball's crown jewel, so get him where people can see him.
Okay, but here's the thing. So if you're the Angels, stop kidding yourselves here. You must trade him. He's not re-signing with you. You cannot let what could be the one thing that could rebuild and not rebuild. You're going for it now. You're just not good enough. The one thing that can, set up your organization, you're hoping from now to kingdom come by the return you would get on Ohtani, right? By what you'd get back by trading him. Now, listen, it's tough because it's a rental for half a year. Less than that.
But they get back a bunch of draft picks, right, which are very speculative in baseball.
Who knows? You have to get as much as humanly possible and hope one of those guys turns into something big.
Because the alternative is nothing.
Nothing. Or I guess maybe no, nothing.
Yeah, I think like a 3rd-round pick or something?
No, like they'll probably do the qualifying offer thing and they'll end up getting like a pick. But essentially nothing. Nothing. And so you really need to make sure you are going to trade him. Now, here's where the crazy part comes in. No one is going to trade this boatload of stuff for Ohtani unless they're absolutely assured that he's going to sign with them. You can't do that. That's bad business because there's no sure things in baseball. So you have to make sure he's going to sign with you. And that number is probably going to start with a 6. I mean, he's essentially a $30 million a year pitcher and a $30 million a year DH all in one guy. So it's probably going to start with a 6.
$50 million hitter. $48 million pitcher.
Sure, but
you could get him. Hey, you know what? The way you say it could start with a 7.
Either way, like you're actually kind of getting a steal. If you have $600 million for 10 years and you have a guy who actually is going to pitch and hit, then you might be getting a steal.
Wow.
Now, these long contracts never
go
that way.
So is what you're saying is it needs to be a certain kind of market or a certain kind of team to even consider this, which will therefore limit the market? I think it will be. I think it's going to be Los Angeles Dodgers, New York, the usual suspects, the New York Yankees, New York Mets.
The New York Mets, you'd be a fool. They're not getting anywhere close to the World Series this year. They're not even going to make the playoffs. The Yankees right now, Stu, how the Yankees doing right now, sir?
Not very well.
Yep, they stink too.
Right, but we're talking about 10 years. Certainly they could afford Shohei Ohtani. So I think, and if I'm reading right, like really you're talking about 4 or 5 teams that are going to want to pay somebody with a 6 or a 7 as the first number.
I wonder if it's even that many. But so you're actually narrowing a pool here. I'm fascinated to see where does he actually end up, because it can't just be a thing where this is what's going on with, Juan Soto. Now, it's crazy because the Padres traded for him and he still had a year and a half left on his contract. So they had to give up even more, and now he's not playing as well. And so what kind of payday is he looking for? It's going to be huge, of course, but maybe not as big. But for Ohtani, the sky's the limit here. So who's going to actually pull the trigger? Because, again, the Angels have to do this. They can't just say, oh, we're going to go for it, we're going to hope, and we're going to pray. No, he's not sticking around. And so what happens? You go to the wild card and you lose, and then he leaves anyway? Or say you even go to the DS and you lose and he leaves anyway? He's not giving you an assurance, hey, if we just make the playoffs, I'm definitely staying.
I wouldn't approach it the same way you are. If I'm the Dodgers, for example, I would give up a bunch of stuff for Shohei without a guarantee, thinking that you can re-sign him. Because if you're the Dodgers and a few other teams, you have so much stuff, it's worth the risk. I think you have to take that risk where if you get him in the building, I know this is like an NBA thing.
You always sell him on the building.
You get him in the NBA. Watch tonight. Watch Mookie Betts quietly sneaking over to Ohtani and whispering a few sweet nothings. I'm telling you, I think these teams that we're talking about think that they can recruit them once they're in the building.
Now, there's another part of this whole Ohtani thing that still nobody knows the answer to. And that is when he first came over from Japan, teams on the East Coast did not know that they had no shot at him. He didn't want to go to the East Coast at all. Didn't want to go to the Yankees, didn't want to go to the Mets, no Phillies, no Boston, nothing. So, no Braves, nothing. So, they didn't know that. The Angels end up being the big winner there because also at the time, the Dodgers and the Padres didn't have the DH. Now you have it in the National League, so it opens it to everybody. However, does he still have that same preference to stay on the West Coast? Because now you narrowed your teams even more. I mean, you're talking about Seattle now. You're talking about San Francisco, of course. You're talking about the Dodgers. Maybe you're still talking about the Padres where they just have endless reserves of money. That's not a lot of teams. It's not a lot. I mean, these are teams that have shelled out big contracts in the past, but it's still not a lot of teams.
There was an LA Times article today. It was basically an advertisement. It was Mookie Betts talking about what a great fit Ohtani would be on the Dodgers.
Sure.
It was, so I think, and then apparently somehow the Padres won in as well. I have no idea how, but I do think that's what tonight is about these All-Stars actually walking up to him and pitching him. I do disagree with you. I think you take the risk, give up everything for him for half a year. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose a bunch of prospects? Honestly, those prospects never really pan out. I mean, they're so speculative.
Yeah, but that's the currency.
Yeah, the Dodgers have so many players, it doesn't even matter. They're so rich. Their farm system has been so rich for so many years. I think the strongest teams, and I don't know. I saw this story also has, by the way, the Austin Riley, the Braves making a pitch, Alonso, the Mets making a pitch, the Astros making a pitch. Like the All-Stars tonight, watch. It's going to be a storyline tonight. People are going to bring this up. They're going to say Shohei would be great on our team. So I think because of the reasons you said, everyone's given up on the Angels, and now the open market. But I don't know. I do think that teams are going to be much more aggressive than you're saying, even for a half-year rental. And would you take him for half a year to win a World Series like Kawhi Leonard?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Basketball, first of all, that was like the weirdest championship of all time. Toronto. But there's just no sure thing.
Yeah.
It's just so much more, to me, fluke. The flukiest postseason is always hockey, but baseball has a fluke element to it.
Sure, it would help to have Shohei Ohtani. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if they want to take Alec Boehm, third baseman Phillies, for Shohei Ohtani straight up, I'm in. Can you imagine in Philadelphia how many home runs he'd hit? That ballpark's tiny.
Yeah, I know. Philly, Cincinnati, these places are bandboxes.
The Mets stadium, your Mets, that stadium's way too big.
They moved the outfield in.
But it's confusing for
David Wright couldn't hit a home run anymore.
But then again, Shohei is a pitcher as well, so maybe it's a little...
I know. Which interests are you feeding more? Unfortunately, Perloff, I don't think you're ever going to have that kind of conversation with the Phillies.
Wait, what are you talking about? The Phillies spend as much as anybody.
No, they do, but I don't think Ohtani wants to go. I don't think he wants to go to the West Coast, the East Coast. Pardon me.
Yeah, and if he did, it would probably be New York, I would think. I mean, listen, Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson didn't want to go to Philadelphia. Why would Shohei Ohtani?
Don't forget LeBron James also spurned Philly.
Yeah, but he was apparently looking at the schools.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Whoever started that rumor. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227.
I mean, sorry, Deshaun Watson was coming off like one of the worst.
Yeah, 30
legal
women had accused him of.
He's like, nah, I'm good, Philadelphia. I'm fine.
No, it's like 30 women are suing you or whatever it ended up being. And it's like, I can't handle those fans. It's
Yeah,
like,
I can't handle this. Yeah.
You guys are really awful. In the chat, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. That's where you can interact with the show. Christopher Walker says, would love to see Ohtani be the first 30 home run hitter since Barry Bonds once he joins the Giants. Listen, the Giants were right there with Aaron Judge. Remember Arson Judge?
Yeah.
The tweet from John Heyman, the baseball insider, who had that Judge was going to San Francisco. It got Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, on the phone from Italy. He was meeting the Pope and got on the phone in the middle of the night to give Judge, what was it, 300 what Judge signed for? 380, whatever it was?
I think 360.
360.
I don't understand when you just said he'd be the first Giant to hit 30 home runs.
That's what Christopher Walker says in the chat.
I seem to remember another Giant who hit a lot of home runs. So, what do you mean?
Has there not been a 30 home run hitter? A 30?
Yeah, there was a 70 home run hitter on the Giants.
No, he said since Bonds.
Is that right? Oh,
yeah, that doesn't sound right, but I'm trying to look into that.
That's crazy. In today's
you
MLB.
want to know what? Maybe it is because yesterday our great debate series, as you'll recall, was top 5 Major League Baseball teams of the last 30 years. So, of course, you have to look at the San Francisco Giants, who won 3 titles in 5 years, 6 years. You got to look, and none of those teams ended up making our list because, well, they might have the best postseason pitcher of all time in Madison Bumgarner. The lineup was awesome, but it never had this huge, massive power.
Buster Posey never hit 30. That's really interesting. What a weird coincidence. So, by the way, I don't think the Giants are getting well, maybe. I don't know. If he wants to stay out west. The Mariners seemed awfully fun last night. I was watching.
The Mariners would be great.
Everybody was so into it in Seattle last night. Maybe they could recruit him.
Pete Tolna in the chat said Perloff is done with Ohtani if he doesn't end up with the Phillies.
Yeah.
You're dead to me.
Yeah.
You are that fair weather.
Pete, I am definitely overly optimistic about Philadelphia sports. There's no way they're getting Ohtani.
If you listen to Philly right now, they think they're getting Dame. They think they're getting Ohtani. You're not getting anybody. Just
listen.
FYI.
Would the Angels be interested in a James Harden, Tyrese Maxey package? Someone take James Harden, please.
It'd be hilarious if they threw in Harden.